Hey guys, so did you see that documentary on the Burning Sun scandal posted by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation? Yes, they have a bureau in Seoul, South Korea. It might even be a one-person bureau from what I understand, or a very small one, but they have been very diligent in bringing a different flavor to the international media scene in Korea. And this is a case in point where they can go back to a huge scandal that I think on the whole Korean people are done with. There is some news value here because we have one of the major culprits of the Burning Sun scandal recently released from jail and him wanting to return back to the music industry. But in general, no media in Korea has done this type of in-depth retroactive kind of look back at what happened and make sense of it now that we know more of the facts and we're not in this constant sifting through in the moment. And that's similar to what we're doing with the whole HYBE versus Min Hee-jin controversy. There's a lot of media plays coming all over the place, and while we are reporting the story, we're sifting through the facts. Well, the cool thing about this documentary is that they don't have to sift anymore, but they were able to find out new information. I didn't think it was that new, but I guess it hadn't been super public that Kuhara was one of the whistleblowers. So that was one really cool thing that this documentary did. But does it have a connection to HYBE? There was a media play saying like, oh, HYBE funded this so that for what? For what? How is this going to benefit them if they even had the idea to do that, which of course they wouldn't. But is there a connection between HYBE and this new documentary on the Burning Sun scandal involving Seungri of Big Bang and YG Entertainment back from 2016 to 2019? So the short answer is no, there is no connection. But in the sense of the world that they're describing, is there a connection? I would say yes, in terms of power, corruption, the K-pop industry, and how people who are caught doing these types of things really play the media, which I would say that we are seeing played out in the whole HYBE versus Min Hee-jin drama over New Jeans and Adore and HYBE and Eyelit and Le Seraphim. But where I think that this really does start to show how dirty some people play is when they reverse who is actually the little man and who is being stomped on. In the beginning of this whole HYBE versus Min Hee-jin thing, by design from Min Hee-jin, who tried to portray herself as the little guy being stomped on by HYBE, that is what really was the crux of this BBC documentary of the Burning Sun incident. The people who were trying to report on it and get justice on it, they were the ones getting stomped on, but being accused of being the bully. So, you know, the whole reversal of the victim and the offender. So now we're kind of getting more of an express version. Thank goodness we don't have to wait like 5 years to get a retrospective. The truth seems to be coming out much faster in the whole Min Hee-jin versus HYBE saga. And we're seeing that, no, she is not the little man or little woman that she's trying to portray and try to get the sympathy of the Korean public. But what we see as a parallel from the Burning Sun incident is that the public really does fall for a lot of tricks. Either, like we said in a different video, either they're falling for it legitimately, they're tricked and they believe that the offender, that the actual predator is the victim. They believe that lie, or they are predatorial themselves and they want to support predators because they probably do similar things in their lives and in their whatever environment that they try to control, and they're mad that people are exposing their game because there's a lot to be gained by tricking people. So where I see a connection is that this is a tale as old as time. This is a strategy as old as time. And this has been used in the recent past with the Burning Sun incident. Now, I thought it was very interesting how they focused on the reporting of it, and I think that was an easy entree really for reporters to then, interview other reporters. It's very efficient. But what I thought was in this case, it was very newsworthy because we didn't really hear about how hard it was for the reporters who were exposing this incident. And we really got to see them recount in the moment how difficult it was, how much bullying they got, and then how it really didn't work out for them. Like that one reporter who, I don't want to give any spoilers, but who did the initial reporting, she had to back off. And then 3 years later, when the issue came up again, another reporter from a different network picked up the mantle of the main kind of thrust of the investigative reporting, and she also had to suffer a lot of hate. So the people who are supposed to be doing the good are painted as the bad, and then the people who are bad are good at painting themselves as the victims and good. But what we saw from this is that it's really hard to maintain that lie for such a long time. But not in all cases. That's the thing. We're seeing a successful case where the good guys win out, but it doesn't always happen like that, which is why people think that they can get away with it, because they probably have gotten away with it before. And so when we were in the moment for Burning Sun, there were too many subplots and so many confusing things so that we didn't know who the main central character was for a while. And who knows if we actually did settle upon the main character. So we're thinking that the main character is Jung Joon-young, who was the person who owned as in basically it was his chat room where he shared a lot of gory details, conversations, and explicit videos and photos. And Seungri, who basically was the person behind the Burning Sun nightclub where a lot of these atrocities took place. But at the time, there was this whole parallel story of, was YG involved in this? And in the end, I think we got a sense that he kind of fished himself out of it. Whether he was there was nothing where he was directly involved in this chat room. So if you make it about the chat room and the antics of what the guys in the chat room were doing, then that's kind of like the main story. But was the main story a little one level bigger? And did YG make himself like a fake supporting actor behind the scenes? He's like, oh no, I just have a cameo in this, I had nothing to do with the chat room. But how much other stuff did you have to do with? Because he did have to face the piper for some other allegations, but when you put it into the context of the law, blackmail, no, he wasn't responsible for that. But what we saw from this situation was that there was some justice that happened. I think the longest jail sentence was 5 years, and it was actually a prison term that Jung Joon-young actually had to serve. Seungri got his 3-year prison sentence reduced down to 1.5 years, and he actually served that. But what I wanted to bring up was how complicated and perhaps a bit unfair this situation was, because when you're trying to smear people who are trying to bring up the truth, or you're basically retaliating against them, I think one of the complicated characters was the first whistleblower, Kim Sang-kyo, the guy that was just a patron of Burning Sun one of these nights where he got beat up by the security guard, and then he was painted as essentially a sexual harasser at the club and a belligerent person. So in the end, he got sentenced to 1 year in jail, but he didn't have to serve it. It was a suspended sentence, but 1 year in jail sentence versus 1.5 years for Seungri. And when you look at the CCTV video, because they said like, oh, he harassed 3 girls. Well, the court said like, no, the 2 just, it doesn't fly, but maybe the 3rd one. And so we're going to give you a whole year. And we're also going to give you, this sentence because you kicked a trash can and you were obstructing the business. Now, I still look at it from his perspective, from the whistleblower's perspective, and I still believe more of him than not. Like, I do believe that he probably was aggressive because he was being so unfairly treated. Like, if you're gonna be roughed up like that, and if you're a guy, you're gonna fight back. And I would say like the guys who go to Burning Sun probably are more of like, the aggressive guys, because it's like one of these environments where like you're hunting for, already it's a weird situation to put yourself in general. I think that's why a lot of people are just like saying, you know what, screw this whole club thing. Like, I'm out. Like, this whole nightlife thing, it's gotten way too dangerous. And, even as a man, if you see the Burning Sun, what we've seen, the whole thing about Burning Sun was that it's such a dangerous environment for girls. But then even now for the guys, if you look at the CCTV footage, yes, he may have violated some things where like he's inappropriately perhaps touching, but we can't really even see that. But all of, it's all in a public space. It was like, like everybody was clothed, and it was like, I think one of these complicated situations where like you can't really like, flirt with saying hello in these kind of situations. Hi, how are you? Hello, nice to meet you. It's very much this whole dancey, grabby type of atmosphere. And that just puts you, if you're the guy trying to make moves on a girl, that these days, it just puts you in a very precarious situation, which, what he found himself in, where you can get the book thrown back at you. I'm not saying that, if he did, touch people inappropriately, that's not good. But how does that almost be the equivalent of running like a prostitution ring and basically drugging girls and taking them down to some like dungeon like in the club, and where that sexual assault is really like without any clothes, or like they wake up, the victim wakes up in a hotel room. This is more of like the girl just rejected him, I guess, rejected the whistleblower. Not that I'm condoning the whistleblower's actions, but you could see like when we were at, in the moment at that time, we were like sifting through all of this, this back and forth drama that could basically sway the public. But now when we look at it, with hindsight, sure, let the whistleblower also get his punishment. But at the same time, let's not confuse the gravity of the situation, which were these people, these celebrities taking advantage of their celebrities to actually really sexually assault women and even videotape it. All of the worst categories, and then take advantage of the legal system and their power to get the victims to not say anything. This time was a really horrible time when you think about the 2015, 2016. It really, like, on many different levels. This was also the whole President Park scandal, where her best friend, who's like also addicted to shamans, was like running the country. So, and in many other situations, like, corporate greed and just horrible other crimes, it seemed like that was a time when people thought they can get away with everything. And that time, when you go back into the history, that time was horrible in Korea, where people were just acting out of impunity because I think a lot of people felt like they were powerless and they had to support the power. Better to support the power that is corrupt and not be as abused as the ones that are going to stand up. But when we look at these types of situations, and even when we're looking at a person like Min Hee-jin going into HYBE and kind of infecting that whole organization, if you don't stomp it out first, then you get a situation like 2015, 2016 in Korea, where the police feel like they are essentially part of a corrupt, paid-off system that works in line with these nightclubs, that works directly to use to grab a lot of VIP money so that they can then do horrible things to women. And the thing that I always thought was emblematic of how horrible this situation was that they were using actual girls who were customers of Burning Sun as their victims. Normally in a situation like this, when when people like do a brief glance at this nightlife thing, they're thinking like, oh well, yeah, it's sketchy, and they would expect that these are the working girls who are getting exploited, and that's horrible too. But in that sense, there's I hate to say this, but there's somewhat of if you go into that line of work, you realize that there are kind of risks in that, and that is part of the equation that you really have to prepare for. So I'm saying, like, in that kind of situation, what we've seen before this whole 2015 or 16 is that it wasn't normal girls who were thrown into these situations. It was girls that in some ways at least they could prepare for it. This whole Burning Sun situation was that it was people who had no idea that this was going on and this was part of the program, and that made them even more vulnerable as victims and extremely unprepared and powerless. And that's what I thought was horrible. And why? You heard it in the documentary. It was disgusting because, and people are just like, well, why would this happen? Why would they choose regular girls? Because these guys who would pay a lot of money to go to the clubs were sick of the working girls. And you even saw it in the chat room saying like, oh, the working girls used to be so cute, but now they don't look, they look kind of, who knows, like a little bit too working. And so they wanted to then set their sights on prey of regular people. And not that working girls aren't regular, but at least they can, not that it's a fair fight, but they're prepared for a fight somewhat. But if you're just walking into a store, you don't or like a club like this, you don't expect that you're going to be drugged and then you're going to be turned into an object that essentially is on the level of the worst conditions of a working girl, and you have really no recourse for it. So that was kind of like the greed, the lust, the real horrible environment that people were in, like thinking that they could just take and just with no conscience. And that's kind of what we see. That's what I see with this type of environment going on over at Adore. Just can take it because you think that you can, and if you get away with it, that must mean that you're so smart, not because you took advantage of people who are unsuspecting and vulnerable, and then also trying to maintain a sense of social dignity and order by not going all like vengeful on you back. The amount of like that's what pisses me off with a lot of these types of people, is that they think that the amount of vengeance that they don't get back is more about because they're so smart. No, it's more like a lot of people have to hold back a lot and do a lot of praying a lot to not retaliate the way that they would want to. So it's not because you're so great that you're not getting karma back immediately, is that people are trying to maintain our society and make sure it doesn't devolve into something. So that is why when you see like Min Hee-jin and what she's trying to do to destroy all the hard work and sacrifice that a lot of artists have made inside HYBE, that really did remind me of this whole Burning Sun incident, because it's kind of a similar mindset. And in that way, I think that's the only real like connection between the two stories. They're totally separate, but the narcissification of it all is like the common thread. All right, guys, what do you think? Did you see the documentary? What did you feel that was different perhaps in 2024 than, when you first heard the story perhaps in 2016, and then when it was revived in 2019? Like, how did you feel about it? And would you ever go to a club in Gangnam after knowing all of this stuff? All right, guys, put your comments below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.